A struggling father and his high school friend become involved with a suspiciously affluent couple, offering them an easy road to financial comfort. Craig Daniels enjoys an intimate morning with his wife Audrey, but is sequentially interrupted by an alarm clock and their crying baby. Framed on their wall, an article he's written for Harbinger magazine is displayed. Later that morning, Craig steps outside their house and finds a one-week eviction notice pinned on their door. He takes the paper off the door and brings it with him to work. In a car firm where he works as an auto mechanic, he is summoned by his supervisor, informing him that he's one of the workers who will be laid off as their company downsizes. Instead of returning home, he phones his wife and lies about going out to drink with his friend. Drinking alone in a bar, Craig's high school friend Vince walks in and recognizes him. When Craig reasons he needs to go home, Vince begs him to stay and have a drink with him as they haven't seen each other in 5 years. Learning that Craig is now a family man, Vince figures that his friend has a good life and inquires whether he's still writing, to which Craig answers that he is. Shortly after, Vince gazes behind him and points to a woman he's been creeping on sitting on the bar's couch. Inquiring whether his friend's job always entails violence, Craig later discloses his concern about his family's impending eviction and his current unemployment. Vince then mentions a heinous act he committed with a father in front of his own daughter for $80, knowing that his work isn't something Craig is capable of doing. A little bit later, Craig walks to the men's room, where he finds a man in a fancy suit sneezing. When the man leaves, Craig discovers a paper bill in the toilet that the rich man left. Walking back to the bar, he finds Vince now sitting on the couch with the lady he's been eyeing and the man in the suit Craig saw in the restroom. Vince explains to his friend that the two strangers are simply asking for some company and offer to buy them the next round of drinks. The rich man requests a whole bottle of tequila from the bartender, then redirects his attention to the two friends, introducing himself as Colin and the woman as his wife Violet, who's celebrating her birthday. When Vince explains that he and Craig are just old friends catching up, Colin proposes they snap a photo to document their reunion. Noticing a man in the bar, the couple enlightens the two pals of their little bet. If the man in the bar checks on the bartender's bottom, Violet wins, but if he checks on her chest, Colin wins. This time, Violet wins as the man glances at the bartender's bottom. Craig and Vince are taken aback when Colin hands $100 to his wife as a prize. Perceiving the men too stunned, Colin suggests a game in which whoever between the two takes the first shot of tequila wins $50. While Craig ponders over the challenge, Vince swiftly drinks the glass, taking the prize. Trying to give the money to his friend, Colin insists that Vince must keep it and play by the rules. So for the next shot, Vince lets Craig drink first and win the prize. Then, they continue the night with a few more wagers, including a $200 prize for annoying a woman to slap their face. Vince allows his friend to try first, but despite his efforts, Craig fails the challenge. However, during Vince's turn, the woman slaps him only a few minutes later, winning the prize. Consecutively, Colin forms a set of substances to sniff on their table. Despite Craig's cautions, the rich man exclaims that he feels more at ease doing it there. When the bartender appears to obstruct what they're doing, Colin simply hands her a few bucks to let them do their thing. Later that night, Vince takes them to a club after Colin asks where they can go next. Meanwhile, Craig informs them that they must return home, but Vince persuades him to join, while Colin adds that he will hurt Violet's feelings by leaving on her birthday. At the club, growing bored due to the club rules prohibiting them from touching the escorts, Colin offers $200 to whoever touches and slaps an escort's bottom. With no hesitation, Vince walks to an escort and slaps her behind, prompting the rest of the group to rush out of the club right after. Outside, Craig refuses to join the group in the car and decides to head home instead. However, the bouncer follows them and asks Craig if he is the one who slapped their women. Despite arguing that he isn't, the man refuses to believe Craig. For $500, Colin yells at Craig to punch the bouncer. Hearing the amount, Craig instantaneously hits the big man and smiles back at the group. As he returns his eyes to the bouncer, the man punches him back, knocking him unconscious. With a fractured nose, Craig wakes up at Colin's place with $500 in his wallet. Moments later, while the rest are having fun, Colin's phone vibrates, indicating that he has received a message from Violet, who's just sitting in the same room. He then requests that Vince assist him in fetching the painkillers from his room, leaving Craig alone with Violet, who photographs him and offers to clean up his wound. Inside Colin's office, while he grabs the painkillers from his vault, Vince spots a stack of cash inside. Then, the two return with the painkillers just as Violet finishes cleaning Craig's wound. After handing handing Craig the medication, Vince whispers something to Colin, prompting the rich man to invite them outside. Gazing at the view of the city light, Vince smiles, staring at his friend. Realizing that his friend is urinating on him, Craig annoyingly dashes into the bathroom, and Vince follows him, explaining that it is merely a $300 challenge. To shift their subject, Vince informs Craig of his plan to rob Colin's cash from his office. The jobless man hesitates to become involved, so Vince reminds him of his financial situation. Fearing that he may be jailed, Vince assures Craig that Colin won't call the cops because he is too high on substances and that cops will arrest him as well. Finally agreeing, Vince directs Craig to hold the girl while he does the rest of the work. The two friends casually walk out of the bathroom as Colin stands to use the toilet. When the rich man passes over him, Vince points a knife at his throat and demands the code to his safe, all while Craig holds Violet, who appears unconcerned about what's happening. Skeptical when Colin informs them that the safe is open, Vince instructs Craig to check it inside the office. Upon walking into the office, Craig discovers that the safe is indeed unlocked. He collects all the cash and walks out with 2 boxes of money. For them to depart, Vince asks for Colin's car keys, which are placed on the shelf. Looking at the shelf, Craig spots a photo of Colin wearing a martial arts uniform, holding 2 massive trophies. Revealed as a skilled martial artist, Colin grabs Vince's hand holding the knife, demonstrating his abilities, while Violet pulls a gun from her purse and points it at Craig. Holding Vince down, Colin calms everyone by saying that they can let bygones be bygones and pretend their robbery didn't happen, disclosing that he and Violet haven't been honest with them either. With the 2 confused faces, Colin explains their plan to give Violet a fantastic birthday night. He adds that the $250 inside the box is actually for them, but they must win it by doing whatever the couple says. The 2 are free to go if they desire. However, they wouldn't get the money, so Vince and Craig agree to accept whatever challenge the couple throws at them. For the first challenge, Colin will give $500 to the person who can hold their breath the longest. Vince goes first while Craig answers his wife's call, telling him that she already knows he lost his job. Audrey convinces her husband to go home so they can figure out their problem together. The husband asks her to give him 45 minutes more and attempts to explain, but Colin urges him to turn down the phone for $300. After Colin lowers his offer to $200, Craig hangs up the phone without explaining to his wife. During Craig's turn to hold his breath, Vince becomes enraged with Colin for giving his friend money for merely hanging up on his wife. On the verge of beating his time, Vince punches Craig, leading his opponent to lose the challenge. Since Vince cheated, Craig protests the outcome. Nevertheless, Colin gives the prize on the grounds that he never gave any rules. Determined, Craig asks for the next challenge, so Colin brings them outside. Showing them his neighbor's dog's feces in his yard, he challenges the 2 to take a dump inside his neighbor's house and photograph it as evidence for $1,200. Without hesitation, Craig accepts the task. Chasing his friend, Vince reminds him that trespassing on the property will cost him a 2-year prison sentence. However, Craig ignores him and continues stepping on the neighbor's property. Once inside, the men carry out the challenge, and Craig sights a girl asleep in her bed. Moments later, Craig eventually drops his waist and takes a photo of it. Before leaving, he loudly wishes Vince good luck, waking up the girl in the room to witness Vince squatting on the floor. The defeated man hushes the girl and carefully runs away before she screams. When he finally gets out, he spots a puppy outside the neighbor's house. While Craig shows Colin the picture of his feces, Vince enters, carrying the puppy. He goes on to declare that even if Craig dumps on their neighbor, he can kill the puppy to put an end to the main root of their problem. However, the couple opposes his idea of slaughtering a helpless dog. Enraged, Vince confronts Craig, accusing him of placing him in danger back at the neighbor's house. Craig claims that he pissed him off first by punching him in the stomach. As the 2 quarrel, Violet takes a photo of them. After Colin gives Craig his prize, Vince eagerly asks for the next challenge. Colin simply requests that they make him a tonic vodka for $300. Attempting to walk and complete the task, Vince clutches Craig's neck, pushes him down, then goes on to make Colin the vodka he demands. Asking if he's okay, Violet massages Craig's back and offers to make love to make him feel better. Hearing this, the 2 friends are equally dumbfounded. Meanwhile, instead of getting upset, Colin offers Craig $4,500 to have a go with his wife, stating that he read the eviction notice inside his wallet when he put his prize for hitting the bouncer. Reminded by this, Craig eventually accepts the challenge. Much to Vince's bemusement, Colin pleasures himself, all while watching his wife with another man. Following the challenge, the couple changes their clothes while Craig counts his money. Announcing that he's going home now that he has the money to pay their rent, Vince is relieved and allows Craig to leave the house. The couple returns fully changed, only to find that Craig is no longer around. Despite Vince explaining why his friend has left, Violet walks outside to look for him but fails. With him still present, Vince tries convincing the couple that they can still continue playing. However, they appear to lose interest, with Colin claiming that they just hate breaking up the crew. Considering Vince's persistence, Colin challenges him to cut off his pinky for $25,000. Once Vince accepts the challenge, Craig returns and offers to do it for $23,000. Being confronted about his sudden return, Craig explains to his opponent that his money would only cover their current eviction. Still, with him and his wife unemployed, they must find a way to pay the rent for the following months. Reasoning the risky job that often endangers him with being jailed, Vince exclaims that he also needs the money. However, Craig contends that what happened to his friend's life is his fault because he dropped out of high school. Infuriated, Vince contests him that he'll do the challenge for $22,000. The two start bidding for the prize of having their finger cut off until Craig bids the lowest amount of $15,000. Surprised by his friend's willingness, Vince asks if he's certain to cut off his finger for that small amount. Craig responds that it won't be gone forever because he can patch it back up with surgery. Not arguing with his friend's decision, Colin asks Vince to be the one to chop the finger, in spite of Craig's distrust towards his friend. After repeatedly halting the process, Craig requests a painkiller before cutting his finger. Noticing Craig's pinky placed on the table, Vince seizes the opportunity and chops it off. Staring at his amputated finger, Craig cries in anguish as he realizes what has happened. He starts running around while Vince pursues him, along with Colin holding the iron to prevent the blood from spilling. Finding that the finger isn't completely detached, they cannot iron it, so Craig pulls the finger all the way rather than using a knife before cauterizing the injury. While Colin shows Craig the money he earned, Vince throws away his friend's chopped finger. Seconds later, they hear a strange sound and discover the neighbor's puppy choking on Craig's finger, killing the animal. Colin scoops up the dog while Violet helps Craig clean his severed finger. Sitting on the floor, Vince leers at the idea that Craig is now unable to reattach his finger. Then, the two go on trading harsh words towards each other. Being dubbed by his friend a loser, Vince admits that he's aware of it. He reminds Craig that he's the biggest loser, pointing out the fact that he had an idyllic life before but now ends up unemployed, cheating on his wife, and sacrificing his own finger. Carrying a dish, Colin interrupts their conversation and invites them to eat. Vince digs into the meal, only to uncover an unappetizing meat being served for them. As another challenge, Colin offers $50,000 to whoever finishes their portion of the meat first. Despite hating the idea, the two accept the challenge to pocket the large sum of money. Both finish simultaneously, so they must have a tiebreaker. Violet hands Colin another dish and challenges the two friends to see who can finish it first to determine the winner. Upon throwing it, the two friends race against each other to get and eat it. After trampling on Vince, Craig performs the task in front of the couple. He instantly throws up, and fortunately, Violet assures him that it still counts. Celebrating his victory, Vince attacks Craig and nearly kills him with his fists. To breathe some fresh air, Colin invites Vince outside while Violet helps the battered Craig. Outside, Vince vents his contempt for Craig and swears that he almost killed him. He is stunned to hear Colin challenge him to do it and kill Craig for $250,000. Convincing the man that the money will give him a fresh start. Later that night, Violet prepares to show them a slideshow. Meanwhile, Colin asks Craig if he needs anything, to which the man responds that he only needs a cab. Colin proceeds to call one as the slideshow displays photographs of the two friends throughout the night. While Craig places his money in a bag, Vince slowly approaches his back with a knife in his hand. Suddenly reconsidering the challenge, Vince turns away from his friend. Glancing at the slideshow revealing photos of them even before meeting the couple at the bar, Vince informs Craig that they must get out of the house. However, Craig turns to him and shoots him twice with a gun, killing his own friend for money. He goes back to count his winnings while the slideshow of their images plays in the background. Once Craig departs the house, Colin hands Violet $100, implying that everything for them was simply a little gamble in which Violet wins for betting on Craig. Upon returning home, Craig takes the cash out of his bag and carries his baby, who cries, terrified of his appearance. Turning on the light, Audrey is taken by surprise seeing her husband in such a shattered state, holding their child while the cash lies on the couch.